Hi, it's Rachel with Stirring the Deep. So I've been talking about this unity with Christ, and this is very important because that Christ is that pure wisdom, that us living in that pure consciousness, which is ultimately the presence of God. Okay, and when you're living in the presence of God, then you are His temple, because where He is, that's where His temple is. Okay, and so in order to do that, you have to start walking in that pure wisdom. You become the cleansed vessel, right, that can hold His Spirit. And so that is a journey, and that is a path that you're walking on, is to that end. And so if people want, so many people want Christ to come, to return, to save them from this world, right? Where He is. He's coming as that wisdom. And you have to embrace that spirit in you that becomes your righteousness, that gives you the power and the grace and the strength and the light, the truth, the knowledge to walk in the ways of God, that you may abide with Him, so that all that you do is of the will of God, because you've emptied your vessel of all the things of the world, all man's wisdom, and you want that pure wisdom of God to fill every action, every thought, taking every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. He obeyed the Father's will. That's what it means. So every thought is walking in the Father's will. And that's how you want change in the earth. That's how it occurs, by walking in that yourself. That is your part to play in this role, in the establishment. It's all of our parts to play. That each one of us walks in that pure wisdom of God. And that is Him coming. And so if you're not taking heed to that, but you're waiting for some outward image that's coming sometime in the future, it's never going to happen. Because Christ, God is in your present. He comes from within where you are in your present moment. And because He's that wisdom, that pure conscience, that you seek Him. It's like He's always been there. He's been hidden, but no one has been able to connect, because we needed that spirit of love and truth, of understanding to come. And so now it's coming. That's what we're gaining, is understanding of His revelation, how He's going to be knit to our spirit, what this process looks like. And it's amazing. And it's these things I've been sharing with you about the present mind and letting go of this world's wisdom and moving into this wisdom of God, and all these things we're able to do because this is how that's what His coming looks like. Okay? So if you're always looking for a future time of Him coming on the outside, and thus you're not attending to everything that's happening on the inside, you're always going to be on the outside. You're always going to be in the outer darkness. To get into the light is a work of within. That's why the kingdom comes within. Okay, so as this happens, there is a very real cleansing that happens in your life, obviously. Because if you're walking in pure wisdom, don't you think that would look differently than walking by the ways of the world in your life? And I already mentioned one, which was the consumption of our food, what we physically eat. Because it's about what are always being loving and honoring, because that's what God's wisdom is in everything that we do. And the way our world is structured now, there is so much massive cruelty to animals and how that food is produced, that to consume that is to abide in total hypocrisy. Okay, so you can't live in that contradiction. Another area is with the people in our life. Okay, and because I've talked about how there are people that are going to be moving into this pure wisdom of God, and they're going to be seeking that. And there are people that are hardening their hearts against it. Okay, so there's really either you're growing and moving forward, or you're hardening your heart. And so again, we were covered in dishonor and filth and all this stuff. And God comes along and He cleans us up so He can dwell within us. And that process is learning what real love is, what real wisdom is, what true honor is, what justice and mercy mean. Okay? And so as you start walking in those things are in every single act you do. They are in every relationship that you have. And it's the relationships that I want to focus on, because this is a hard one for some people. So what, in this time, the kingdom is being established, and that is a place of righteousness, of purity. Okay? And that's what I was reading in Psalm 24 about who can ascend to the hill. Those with a clean hands and a pure heart. That's in Psalm 24:3, right? So those that have been, so there's this separation that's happening, and you see that, and I've been talking about that in other videos, right? If you're coming and walking in line with the truth, you're going one way. If you're hardening your heart against it, you're going the other way. Okay, so that means that people in your life, there will be people on both sides. Either people growing into this pure wisdom and love of God, and people not. Okay, and this is where the separation between people starts occurring. And this is what's very important to understand. Okay, so first, you have to examine your own life, right? Examine and check out the plank in your own eye before you worry about the speck in your brother's eye. So first, you have to examine your heart. And first, are you following the true God? So the one that doesn't have a hypocrisy. So the Heavenly Father, it is pure love, so that does not eternally torment souls. Okay? Because if you believe that, you yet to understand love. And so your whole image of God is wrong. So first, that needs to be reconciled. Okay? Once you understand, you start learning what pure love is, because then you can start connecting to the Father, and the Father can start teaching you. But as long as you have the wrong image, you'll never connect to Him. And that pure love and that pure wisdom, as you start to connect to it, you're going to start seeing your life grow in peace, because His ways bring peace. That's what He says in Haggai, in this temple, it will be peace. There you will start growing increasing love for everyone, yourself, for God, for others, everyone. You'll grow in increasing wisdom. You'll see it in your life. Your paths will start becoming more smooth. Things will just start working out, because you're starting to walk in that wisdom of God, and that's what it creates. It prospers you. It blesses you. It is amazing, okay? So that's how you know. So if you are walking in that, okay, then you have someone that comes into your, because, okay, I'll just continue. So then you have someone in your life that you are loving. I don't care if it's been your enemy in the past, but now, because that's what you're doing, that's what we're called to do, is love even our enemies. And that is extending that mercy and that care, because that's what God does for us. Okay, the enemy is someone who is in lies and in bondage. Okay, so they're an enemy to the truth. That's really what it is. It comes down to the truth and lies. It's that battle. It's that spiritual battle. So it's not that person, but it's all the stuff that's covering them. Okay, so that's what is the enemy. And if that soul that's covered in all those things does not want to let go of that, then you can't have any kind of union with them. If that soul that's covered in all that desires and is seeking truth and freedom, then you can continue to forgive them. And that forgiveness is how people grow and how we're healed, because that's how we grow with God. It's like when you start seeking God, you have a lot to learn. There's a lot of bondage and oppression and dishonor and all kinds of things you're working on. But once you have that heart to really know Him, He takes all those things and He starts instructing you by those. Okay, see where you went that way? No longer go that way, go this way. That's that walk of repentance. And so you're leaving all that stuff behind. So all those sins are just falling away from your life, because you're seeing them for what they are. Okay, that's walking in that path of life. That's walking with the God that's growing in Him. So, but it's a journey. So that means during that process, we still have dishonor in our life. We still aren't walking as we should, because we just don't know yet. It's truth upon truth God has to teach us. Okay, so if someone else is also on that path, they're really seeking, so there will be growth in their life. I don't care how small, but there will be growth. And if that's the case, then you stay in that relationship and you continue to forgive them, because that forgiveness is what they need to help them grow, right? Because they need that love, because that's how they're going to learn. That's how we all learn. That's what God does with us. He continues to love. He continues to teach us, right? But we learn and we're on this upward path, okay? Versus someone who, if you're loving them and showing them that honor and because you really can see them, you look past all this sin, you realize it's a disease like leprosy, and you're like, that's going to be healed, purged one day. So you're looking at them. But if they are so hard that they can't return that love back to you and start growing, then those are the people you have to separate from. Okay? And Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians 5. So that's a very, very important thing. So that's where things will separate. And that's why Jesus said in Luke 14, let me turn over there. Verse 26, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Okay, now this has a couple overlay of meanings here, but one is saying Christ is pure love. He is pure wisdom, pure truth. If you are choosing an abusive relationship, a dishonoring relationship over him, you're not choosing the right thing. For example, if you're a woman that's living with a man and you're not married and then there's not that commitment there, then you're going against that pure love because you're not honoring yourself. You're not honoring what that union of a man and woman represents and the level of commitment and purity that it is supposed to hold. So you're putting that above Christ, above that pure truth. So and that's harming you because his ways are full of love and they will protect you and they will keep you in peace and in joy and in happiness and in prosperity. But if you continue to abide in those other relationships that are dishonoring to you because they're not respecting each other because you're also dishonoring that other person, that's choosing those relationships over him. Okay, that is an example of that. And that's same true, like if you have parents that are abusive to you, verbally abusive, and there is no growth there, you don't abide in that. You have to choose honor and love because abiding in that is saying that it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. I don't care what label they have in a relation to your life. If someone continues to abuse you with no real heart of repentance, meaning not just they're saying they're sorry and they continue the same level of abuse. That's not repenting. That's not what forgiveness is about. It's saying, no, you really don't want to do that anymore, and you want to turn. And again, sometimes people have to go through stages, but you have to see radical growth and continual growth in the right direction because that means they're growing. If they're not continuing to grow, they never started. All right, so you have to, so if that abuse is there and that continued dishonor, then you can't be in that relationship. You've got to choose what is truly loving, what is truly honoring. Okay, and you see that throughout the New Testament is that there's that distinction. So for you in your life, this is another part of how you have to be honoring, okay, to yourself, because that Spirit of God in you becoming the temple demands honor. It will not allow that constant filth to be thrown at you. But that's why I said at first you have to have the right God, because you yourself cannot be dwelling in hypocrisy. You can't be throwing, if you're in a religion and you're throwing religion at people that you love and that's causing all this dissension, that's not what it's about. You're to be loving the people around you. That's caring for them, caring for their soul, helping them to walk in the truth of what is the purest of love and caring for themselves and loving. You strip all the images of religion off of it. Okay, and if that's what you're doing and that person continues to just harm you and dishonor you and abuse you with no real change and growth, you have to be out of that relationship if you want to continue to grow, because that spirit cannot abide in that dishonor. Do you see the difference? So this is very important in your relationships to understand what this is doing and the choices you have to make. And so this is what he's saying, and this is what's good about this verse 26, because it says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and yes, his own life also, And what is it? You cannot be my disciple. This is saying you have to be willing to turn away from all the lies. Okay? So who gave you, and brought you up in those lies? Who is really your real mother and father in instructing you? Those ways of mankind, those doctrines, that wisdom. Who are you really married to? We're talking in a spiritual sense, okay? Who are you really married to? Is it evil? Is it lust? Is it, it's all of those things. What have you really produced? Have you produced suffering and pain more, just bitterness and resentment? It's like you can't, that in your own life, like all of those things are created in corruption, of death, of suffering, of pain, of lies. You got to get rid of all of that. Be willing to turn from all of it to be his disciple, because that means you're saying you want to walk in truth. You want to walk in what's pure, and you want to have your relationships to be pure and full of love and without hypocrisy. And so if you have that, you have to be willing to let go of that relationship and how it was and create something new. And if that person is not willing to come along with you in that newness of life and grow in real love, then you can't abide in that anymore. But this is what my belief is, that most people, yes, there are some people that are very, demented, right? But most people really desire pure love. And if you really give the purest of love, which you can only do when you first have that connection with the true Father of love, then that is very powerful to change people. Okay? But first you have that connection in truth, and then that love can be very powerful to change other people. That's why you have to have the right Heavenly Father and not the false image. And that's where it all starts. But once you understand that, then you can start examining those relationships in your life and breathing that life into them and letting go of everything that was dead about them. And so this is something that I know a lot of people are struggling with in their relationships right now. And so I hope this helps to kind of clarify when you're walking in the wisdom of God what it looks like, okay? And what some of those verses mean about what it means to be in forgiveness and someone that is really forgiving and letting, and you're in that relationship when someone is really growing. If someone is growing, you keep forgiving them, I don't care how many times, because they're growing, and that's what helps them. But if they have a hard heart and they aren't, then it's time to separate, because we can no longer support, we can no longer abide in that, because the truth is here to destroy it. And you don't want to be holding on. At least you go down with it. Till next time, keep stirring the deep. It's the one thing that changes everything else.